are listening to The Breakfast Show on Faith FM with myself, Skafy, my good mate, Elliot, and producer Shell. Producer Shell, do you have a new quiz question for us? Yes or no? Please answer now. Do not delay.
The way you said producer show was like, yes, Skafy and Elliot and producer show.
That's right.
Yeah,
Me and my really good friend Elliot, and then there's
and then like the lady out there.
Yeah.
Then the American lady out there. Producer Shell.
Oh, that's funny. That's
All right, Producer Shell, you dispense all commentaries.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Just, you're the living legend of The Breakfast Show. What can I say?
Without producer show, there would be no breakfast show.
No Shell, no show.
Stop. All right. Which of the 12 tribes was Gideon from?
Oh.
Giddy up, Gideon, giddy up.
Which he referred to as the weakest. A little hint there for you. Which of the 12 tribes was Gideon from? Our phone number here is 0491-064-669 for you to play along. Which of the 12 tribes was Gideon from? We have 2 incorrect answers.
Okie dokie. I'm just going to keep guessing.
Yeah, that's right. Until you go through all 12. All right, I think we might have to move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
Hopefully somebody else will help you out with what the correct answer is.
I'll give the incorrect answer so people will not, will have...
Well, you better wait. I'm just
Better wait.
I'm going to double check myself just in case. But
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was that one, but I can totally be wrong here. All right. Yeah. Now, Elliot, you said that you have some tips that people can follow if they want to recover from a surgery, and I am all ears. Have you ever done any surgeries yourself?
Actually, once. Recently, fairly recently, I had my tonsils taken out.
Oh.
Which is actually not very fun, to be honest. You know what was really
Did your
wild
voice
about
change big time?
I don't think it did.
Okay.
Maybe like while I was recovering, there was a little bit of felt kind of like I had a frog in my throat kind of feeling, like a bubble in my throat. It felt a bit strange, but now it's fine.
You're speaking kind of like President Barack Obama. I follow America.
Not quite like that.
You're listening to The Breakfast Show?
Yeah, it just sounded a little bit funny. Maybe we should get him on as a guest. This is our guest, Barack Obama. Barack, how are you doing this morning? No, I did have surgery. The thing that I thought was so crazy about it, actually, the whole process, was general anesthetic, because I'd never had general anesthetic before.
Oh.
And so I was like,
I never had it.
Yeah, well, it was wild, dude. I was just chilling in the anesthetic bay, and the nurse had put this cannula in my arm, and I was just relaxed with her, and she's like, oh, what are you doing with yourself, blah, 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 just chit-chatting. And then she's like, all right, we're ready to go. So she starts wheeling me out in this bed, and I'm like, oh, cool. And then, boom.
You don't remember anything?
Lights out. And all I remember is I was like getting wheeled at, and then I woke up in the waiting bay, like the recovery bay.
Beep.
No, there was no heart monitor. I was just chilling there, and I woke up and I was like, wow, it's done. And I was like, huh.
Wow.
And I was still under the anesthetic, so my throat didn't feel sore.
Anesthesia is a wild thing.
It's incredible, man. It is absolutely incredible. But this is what was so interesting, is for people who have had surgery, and this is for like inpatient surgeries, which means the surgeries where they got to stay overnight or for longer. So pretty serious stuff. There was a study that found, they took tests on 2,000 adults, and they found one of the best ways to recover quicker after surgery is, get this, walking.
All right.
Free. You don't have to pay to walk. That is actually one of the best ways to recover after surgery.
And why is that?
Well, this is what was so interesting. They found, okay, so get this. Here's some stats which are really interesting. I love stats. The study showed that every 1,000 steps made per day after an operation was linked to 18% lower chance of complications and a 16% lower odds of readmission and 6% shorter hospital stays. So basically, if you got up and walked out and about, then you would recover quicker.
The more you walk, the better it is. I think because walking, I would say that walking uses so many muscles, so many things. You just kind of strengthen your body,
Well,
but it's also very gentle.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was interesting is it's actually, they found that walking, because they had like wearables, things like a Fitbit or a Whoop or whatever, like things that would track the patient's health and how many steps they're taking, right? And so they could use this to gauge the actual recovery of the patient. Because if they're not walking, then they go, okay, they're probably in not a very good state. But if they are able to get up and walk around and about, then they go, okay, this is a good indicator of where they're at in their recovery process. Better than, their heart rate variability. So, and better than their self-reported wellness. It's actually a really good way for the medical practitioners, for the nurses and doctors to gauge how one is recovering.
That's quite amazing. Look, my wife went through a major surgery last year.
Really?
Yeah. So she had breast cancer, so she had a surgery regarding that. But she also had connected to that breast surgery, she also had like a abdominal surgery.
Really?
But you know what? The doctor said, look, you have to go and walk.
Yeah.
And she was walking all curled up and, because, imagine like she, her abdomen was operated and everything.
Yeah.
But every day she could walk a little bit more. She could get a little bit more upright. And I can tell. And she had like an incredible recovery.
Yeah.
It was very, very fast for that level of surgery and the trauma that the surgery is to your body. It was necessary, of course. There was no way around. But I can see from her experience how walking was something that was encouraged and something that really aided her in her recovery. Because I think that the temptation would be there for you just to sit down and to lay in bed as much as possible.
To sit and do nothing.
But at the same time, when you're laying down for a long time, man, you start getting cabin fever.
Well, let me share something that is really interesting. One thing about the importance of walking. So get this, 2023 study found that patients who took more than 7,500 steps a day before surgery had a 51% lower risk of post-operative complications.
Wow. And
So-
7,500, it's not even that much.
It's actually not a crazy amount.
Like 10,000, they say it's just the bare minimum just for maintenance of health. So you're walking less than the bare minimum.
Yeah. So, which to me is like, wow, so if you just get up, go out and about, have a little stroll, and you got a surgery coming up. If you know, like, okay, I'm going in for a surgery. If you get up, go for a walk every day, you will have a 51% lower risk of complications.
Look, do a
after your
combo.
surgery.
So make this part of your lifestyle. Go for like a 30-minute walk. Take your cell phone with you.
Yeah.
And
Track
download
how
an
many
audio
steps.
Bible. If you know, you can download some really good audio Bibles. You can go to Audible.
Yeah.
And they have like an amazing dramatized New King James version of the Bible. I use that. I listen to that all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure that there will be some free ones, but actually, there's a hack. I'm going to share the hack.
Yeah.
In Audible, they have this thing like if you're a first-time customer, they give you your first book for free.
Really?
And you go there and choose the Bible, because the Bible one, like if you're actually going to buy the Bible thing, in the CDs, I remember it used to cost like over $200.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
wow,
because
that's
like
expensive.
it's over like, I don't know, 80 hours of really high quality level. Actually, you know who is the Jesus voice in that Bible?
Who?
Jim Caviezel, the guy that portrayed Jesus in the Passion of the Christ.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so actually have like real good voice actors
Yeah, that's cool.
for the Bible. And I would just say, look, I'll just tell people, look, the best free hack that you can find is just go there.
Yeah.
Get your free book, but get the Bible. Don't get any old book. Get the Bible. And the thing is, the book is yours to keep, even if you cancel right after.
Yeah.
If you cancel your thing,
There you
you get to keep the Bible forever and ever.
How good is that?
So if you go for a walk, you listen to the Bible, talk to God. Man, you're getting fresh air. You're getting exercise done.
Yeah.
You're feeding your soul. You're talking to the Holy Spirit. And if 30 minutes sounds too much, go for a 5-minute walk, 10-minute walk, and then look, stay if you feel.
Here's something
you can stay
interesting
longer.
as well, actually, because sometimes people want to, after surgery, it's just kind of like, oh, well, they tell me I should sit and rest, so let's just stay in bed all day. Well, what's interesting is there was a study done back in 1966. Okay, so this is a while ago, but it's very interesting. They got young athletes and they had them rest in bed for 3 weeks straight, which is usually what the doctors would prescribe to people after they'd had heart attacks.
All right.
So if they had surgery or they had a heart attack, they'd say, okay, go to bed and just rest in bed for 3 weeks and recover. Well, what they found is that these young athletes, after 3 weeks resting in bed, their heart muscle had atrophied by 27%.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
Man.
And
These athletes would be so annoyed after that,
and what
because,
they
it
found...
takes a while to work up your
what they
heart
found
capacity.
is that their heart was as fit as someone 30 years older than them. And they found this to actually be very true because they measured the same people 30 years later and they had the same heart fitness after 30 years as what they had when they had just rested in bed for 3 weeks and
That's
did nothing.
amazing.
And then they found that their VO2 max, which is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can, absorb and use when you're under doing exercise, like intense exercise, they found their VO2 max after 3 weeks in bed was 15% worse than what their VO2 max was 30 years later after the experiment. And also, when they measured them 60 years on, so 60 years after they've rested in bed for 3 weeks, their VO2 max was 10% better. So like that is 60 years on, their VO2 max is better than it was after that 3 weeks
These are
of
some
resting.
scary numbers, and I can relate to that. I mentioned I did my half marathon, and I took a few days off to recover, and I haven't been going to the gym for a while.
Okay.
And haven't been swimming, and when I came back, I was feeling so weak.
Yeah.
And that's like after pretty much 1 or 2 weeks kind of with lower exercise amount. So imagine if you're living your entire life on that low level mode,
Yeah.
and your whole body is operating suboptimally.
Yeah.
And imagine the repercussions of that in everything else, really.
Yeah, in the
your
long term.
patience, with your family, with the capacity of your brain to work.
Oh, yeah.
All these things.
Because you're not getting as much oxygen delivered to your brain, to the other parts of your bodies and everything. So
Our
just
body's
walking.
When I look at the body, man, it's you can see clearly that it has been designed for movement.
Oh,
It
yeah.
has not been designed to stay still. We have all these articulations that move all these different places.
Yeah.
We gotta use them, baby,
Yeah.
or you lose them.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Use it or you lose it.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And we actually have our quiz answer coming up. So, producer Shell, what was the answer that neither me nor Skafy actually got?
It's Manasseh.
It was
Manasseh.
Manasseh. Yeah, I said Benjamin. Let me
I
just
said
say-
Benjamin as well. I said
Yeah,
Gad.
I had this idea. Yeah, it was. Yeah, but look, it was Manasseh.
There you go.
Yep.
And his father was Joash, and his clan was the Abiezrites inside of the Manasseh tribe.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got a good friend called Joash, actually. It's not a very common name, I would say. I don't hear the name Joash very often, but my friend Joash, we call him Joe.
Shout
He's
out.
a very unique guy. I'll say it that way.
Right?
I love him. I love
Yeah,
him.
I did have to do a little bit of a correction on the quiz question, though, as far as my hint was concerned, because it wasn't. He didn't say that Manasseh was the weakest. He said that his clan in Manasseh was the weakest of Manasseh. So,
Oh, there you go.
Hey, yes, that
You tricked us. Producer Shell tricked us.
sorry,
No.
sorry, it's fixed up for in 6 years' time when it gets recycled again.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Let's move on now. I want you to have put on your thinking caps on. I'm going to be talking to you about chemistry
Oh,
and humanity's, new greatest fear.
Okay.
Now, according at least to 38 scientists,
I like
two
chemistry.
of them being Nobel Prize laureates themselves.
wow. Okay.
Well, before we get into that, I'm just going to say this. So, the Bible has a very interesting passage in the book of Revelation, chapter 11, verse 18. It says that God will destroy those who destroy the earth.
Right.
This was a very cryptic passage until maybe 60, 70 years ago, because it was impossible to destroy the earth. Like, humanity didn't have the capabilities. And then we had nuclear weapons, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
we could actually pretty much destroy the earth with nuclear weapons. But even if nuclear weapons, a lot of things would still survive. Like, cockroaches would still be there. Maybe some groups would be able to survive, and
Maybe.
perhaps some of these billionaires that have like underground shelters.
Yeah, all the
and
bunkers and
the
whatnot.
bunkers. You can think, for example, some vegetation will survive. So it would be a potential massive wipeout, but not entirely. Until in late 2024, a group of 38 scientists, two of them Nobel Prize winners, they wrote a letter addressed to the world saying about a risk of a new technology that has been developed. And this new technology, what it does is that they call the threat the mirror life.
Okay.
Mirror life. So let me tell you exactly what is mirror life and the chemistry behind it.
Yeah, what is it?
When you look at molecules, any molecule, a protein or amino acids or sugar, they have this thing called chirality. Chirality is basically like if you're creating like a substance in the laboratory, for example, 50% of them, the substance will get assembled in a way that it has a shape like the right hand and the left hand.
Yeah.
So molecules and proteins, they are not symmetrical.
Yeah, okay.
They have an orientation, either left-handed or right-handed. This is what the scientists call them.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes the main part of the molecule is on the left. Sometimes it's on the right. And when you're doing laboratory experiments, it's normally 50-50. But there's a big but here. When it comes to life, to all living forms, they are what scientists called homochirality or pure chirality, meaning every single form of life that you know on Earth, from the smallest bacteria to the greatest of the animals, we only produce and process left-handed amino acids
Okay.
and right-handed sugars for DNA and RNA and other structures like that. So basically our bodies, they can only work when these proteins, when these substances are in the right angle.
Yeah.
Not on the right angle, but in the right configuration. Kind of like a left-hand drive or left-hand drive car. Imagine that, our bodies can only function they only have the license to operate one kind, so to speak, right? Okay. Or, so if you, for example, if you put into your body an amino acid that has the right orientation, left-hand side, great, your body's going to use that amino acid to build up the proteins.
Yeah.
If you give the same amino acid, but in the mirrored format, it doesn't work. Your body's just going to say, this is trash, I'm going to eliminate that.
Okay.
It's like kind of having to try to shake someone's hand with the wrong hand.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work, does it?
Doesn't work.
So this is exactly what happens. And a number of scientists actually pointed out from an evolutionary perspective, they say this is a great mystery. Why is it that life only uses 100% pure chirality? Whereas intelligent design says, look, this is a signature of the creator.
Yeah.
This was a decision made by the creator because there is no way in nature that, if you're following purely natural processes, that you would find out that all of the living organisms, they all use the exact same orientation of the molecules.
Yeah, yeah.
Why is that a thing? Because we now have the technology to create DNA and to manipulate and to form DNA strands in laboratory. Okay. And we can form molecules in laboratory. And we also have the option now, scientists that deal with that, you can create molecules that are either left-handed or right-handed.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like building up a Lego, but more complex. But building like a Lego, and you can choose, in which side, the molecule will be looking like. Yeah. The problem is that the scientists were warning is that this technology allows us to create bacteria that are on the mirrored image, that using all the inverted positions of their amino acids, their DNA.
Okay.
Which means that if these mirrored bacteria, which are bacteria created by molecules that are exactly the same but in our own reverse, if they get into our body, there's nothing we can do to get rid of them. Our immune system doesn't recognize them. Our immune response does not bind on them. No antibiotic on Earth will work on them. Oh, a few will, but like the vast majority of antibiotics wouldn't work because they depend on that chirality to plug in the substances into the bacteria.
Okay.
So basically, you can create super bacteria for which there will be absolutely no defense. They're just multiplying. Even if you get like harmless gut flora bacteria, they can actually kill you. Because they
it's
can
like you
take over
can't stop- yeah.
and nothing will stop them from just overgrowing anywhere.
Wow.
Not only that these same bacteria, they can also invade animals and either
Really?
kill or have animals as a constant supply of these bacteria that cannot be fought off. And also, these bacteria can very easily feed from things that are in our blood, in animals' blood, or can feed in the nutrients of the soil. So they can actually infect plants as well and destroy entire crops.
Right. But the only way that these bacteria are made is if they're made in a lab. Is that
But
correct?
the only way is you have to make them in a lab because they do not exist in nature.
Okay.
So the scientists are saying, hey, this is actually posing a real risk because even like the tiniest little bacteria that it's done in this way, once we've done the first one, and even if you do them in a quote-unquote safe way, for example, you can do it in a safe way that you can program them to only feed on very specific laboratory-made sugars. But then
Right.
if this technology falls in the wrong hands, it's once the bacteria is created, it's very easy to replicate it and then make it be more virulent,
Yeah.
more aggressive, and so on. Kind of like what a lot of people suspect happened with the COVID virus in Wuhan.
Yeah.
Because Wuhan is the city where they have this massive biotech with all kinds of viruses, and so it was quite strange that the virus that stopped the whole world started in that city, of all cities.
Yeah, okay. Dude, that's serious
So
stuff. That's
mirrored
like
life bacteria.
potential for bacterial warfare.
Bacterial warfare, and this is the thing, it affects every form of life. Soil,
crazy.
it involves plants, animals, human beings, the environment.
The
It's
thing
just
that
stored there.
just is crazy to me is the fact that scientists and whatnot will go, oh yeah, well we've just discovered this thing, which is posing a potential threat to all life. But let's just keep experimenting with it.
No, but
rather
this
than-
is exactly what they're not doing. So they wrote down a letter saying, look, this technology is quite not yet. We're not able to develop these bacteria yet, but because of AI and these other technologies, they say, look, this is easily 10 years into the future, maybe 10 to 30 years possible.
So this isn't happening as
It's not
we
happening
speak?
right now, no. But
Right.
they say, look, but we can create, if we can go that direction if we want.
Yeah.
It would take us maybe 10 to 30 years to kind of come up with a bacteria. It would be a big project, kind of like the Human Genome Project. It would take millions of dollars, scientists, labs, and so on. But they say, look, but at the rate with which AI is evolving, maybe 10 years can be shortened to perhaps 4 or 5 years. So basically, the scientists are saying, please, all the governments in the world, can you please sign a treaty saying that we're not going to go that way? We're not going to develop these technologies.
Yeah.
We're not going to sponsor these kinds of programs. But then you ask that to the United States and to China and to Russia. Can you guys please promise that you're not going to develop a technology that is going to give you a significant edge over all of your enemies militarily? And people can say, yes, sure, but my fingers is crossed behind my back. So the
Dude,
scientists
that's-
acknowledge that, hey,
oh,
look,
man.
this is just a warning. Say, look, don't go there, because
Wow.
this is going to be a path of very, very easy for not only human but animal and plant life extinction.
Dude, if Jesus doesn't come back soon, then it seems like we're just going to wipe ourselves out at this point.
That's exactly my point. So Jesus says, look,
Man.
I find it fascinating that the Bible would predict that one day humanity would be able to destroy itself. That's in Revelation 11, verse 18. I think this is number one fascinating.
Yeah.
2,000 years ago, God already said, hey, this is going to happen. And then Jesus says, look, I have to intervene and come back and redeem my people and destroy the evildoers, because if I don't, guess what? You guys are going to destroy yourselves for good anyway.
Like it says, the days will be shortened for the elect's sake. Otherwise, they'd all be destroyed.
Yeah.
That's wow. There you go.
There you go. Mirror life. That's the technical term
Oh man,
they use for that.
that's
Have you heard about it
incredible.
before?
I've actually never heard about that. There you go. So
The UN has been having some meetings, but guess what? No treaty has been signed. The governments are just like silently kind of looking at it, but
man.
nothing public. But look, the alert is out, and the doomsday clock has been advanced in a number of seconds because of that new existential threat in the horizon. Which, if you ask me, I think it's worse than nuclear and AI, because it's more comprehensive.
If there's no way to
There's no way to
stop it.
defend against it.
You're listening to the Breakfast Show podcast on Faith FM. Positively different.
And it's now my pleasure to introduce my friend Noah Rowett from the Voice of the Martyrs. He is going to be bringing a story to us of a modern-day martyr from Vietnam. We're going to be looking at his life, at his legacy, and what happens in Vietnam as well that makes the gospel so difficult to be shared. Noah, good morning to you. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Good morning, brother. That was a beautiful song, by the way.
Oh, I'm glad that you like. Well, we have to give the thanks to producer Shell. She's the one curating our song library here.
Lovely.
So, Noah, tell us a little bit about Vietnam first. What is the country like? What is the religious landscape there? How is it to be a Christian in Vietnam? Because it's a very popular touristic destination to many Australians, isn't it?
Yeah, that was where I was going to start, actually. Probably a lot of the listeners here have either been to Vietnam or would like to go to Vietnam. It's a very affordable holiday. It's not too far away. And, yeah, it's an amazing place in many ways for tourists. However, what was very interesting is I was in what used to be called Saigon, now Ho Chi Minh City. I was there about 15 years ago, and it was a classic Southeast Asian city. No different to anywhere else really, apart from its own uniqueness. But I went back there about 4 weeks ago, and man, it was very, very different. Now, it was a bit more modern. It was probably better for a tourist, a lot more things to do and see. However, I went into the airport, I got out of the airport, and there was this big banner, and it was like something out of the 1950s, it's almost like a cartoon of a soldier next to a farmer, next to a nurse, and it had, all these communist symbols. And I thought, oh, wow, this is a little bit dystopic, And then I went
Soviet era propaganda, those classic ones.
Absolute classic. I'd love to share the photo. And then as I thought, oh, well, that's just a one-off. And as we're driving through the city, there are symbols everywhere. The hammer and sickle, those flags are everywhere, every street corner. Those posters are up everywhere. I thought, whoa, where am I? Man, this is different. So that was an interesting introduction to Vietnam. So they are definitely going down a road. It looks like they're trying to be China's little brother or something.
So they're really reviving that concept of communism, socialism, instead of the Soviet era style or Chinese communist style.
Big time.
And it is very interesting because they have been big trade partners of the United States. They've been a lot of the things that the United States said that they're not going to buy from China anymore. Well, Vietnam is supplying. They were trying to, to talk to everyone. But at the same time, as you mentioned firsthand, they are definitely going to a communist philosophy. And communist philosophy, normally it's not very friendly with Christian philosophy, is it?
Exactly. And so it is spreading. So what happened is there are a lot of people who go to church in those big cities, and they go to like a Catholic church and some other churches that are registered. Now, they go in there and everything seems to be okay. And in fact, those people in the cities have no idea what's happening around them. And it's quite bizarre, actually, including a lot of Vietnamese in Australia. They don't actually know what's happening in we call it the jungle, the bush, in the regional areas. Those people are on fire for God. They are evangelical Christians because they're simply out there with the word of God. And so that's all they know. And they're spreading that message, and they're the ones under fire.
Okay, so tell us how exactly are they being persecuted? What is the government trying to do to squash their enthusiasm, their preaching of the gospel? What kind of persecution they endure? Yeah,
because of the regime, they send out small local governments, and authorities, and they report back to the regime. Now, those local authorities, they need to present a good report from their area. And that means it needs to be a clean area. It needs to be a communist area. When I say clean from any other religions that will stir up the pot or make people less loyal to the regime. So it is the local authorities that really put the hammer down on Christians, particularly because Christians who understand, Christians like you and I, we understand freedom of, our freedom from sin. And so, therefore, these people are willing to go against the government if it goes against their faith. And so the authorities know this, and like to clamp down on that. And they often get locals to be spies for them because, people are poor there, and it's easy to bribe someone to say, hey, can you keep an eye on your neighbor? Because we want to make sure, and we'll pay you to do that.
Yeah, so it becomes like a way of living where they're paying the population so that they can spy on one another. So what is kind of the level of persecution that they would face? Are they going to be asked by officials, hey, stop preaching in this name, the name of Jesus? Or would they have like access to their healthcare blocked up, or their business? They'll find a way to take them out? What's typically, or are they going to go straight to jail for preaching? What's happening there?
Well, it's many of those things actually that you mentioned. It's generally speaking, they don't want you to start a business if they know that you're a Christian. I think the worst thing is the healthcare. If you go to a local doctor and they won't treat you because you're a Christian. Now the doctor might like you. The doctor may have no problem with it, but he is more worried about the authorities. Mm-hmm. So remember, a lot of these people live in fear of the authorities, and that's the whole point of places like North Korea and others, is fear will stop people doing anything wrong. So they have to usually go to a nearby village. When I say nearby, they have to get on their bikes in the jungles, and they have to go out to like 2-3 hours to somewhere no one knows them, and then the doctor will heal them there. Well, try to heal them.
Wow, that's amazing. And I imagine like being in a life where, because you're a Christian, everything is so hard, like, healthcare, education, your kids cannot come to this school, and basically you have to go travel 2-3 hours every time that you need a basic service. You mentioned that you met you heard a man who recently was martyred in Vietnam. What happened? What is his story?
Yes, we were scheduled to catch up with him. And a whole bunch of others, mainly the leaders in the area. And what happened was, this guy, now his personality was to just spread the gospel. Even his peers would say to him, his pastors, his friends, look, you just got to do things a little bit more, discreetly.
He's fearless.
You got to get caught. Yes, he was fearless. He was a fearless brother. And his name was Brother Phat. That's Phat. And so he had various jobs while he was preaching, but he just loved to preach the word of God. And he'd get on his motorbike, he'd go from town to town. And so he was very bold, and then the authorities had enough. Now, it's a little sketchy, the details, because of the authorities kept it a lot of it hidden. But there was this commotion in the middle of the road, and suddenly all these authorities came around. This is the middle of a country road just near the town. And then this brother, he was beaten. We don't know exactly how, but usually they beat them with batons. And then he was heading to hospital, so they allowed him to head off to hospital, but he died on the way. Now, I think the worst part of that, it was horrible for him and his family. And so the locals and his brothers, Christian brothers, wanted to come and have a look, but they blocked everything off, and no one was allowed to see the crime scene. So, and no one still has been able to see the crime scene. And then what happened was, at the funeral, they weren't allowed to see the body, but the body was delivered, but they weren't allowed to actually go and visit the body. And then the authorities were lining up around the funeral. So the family were allowed to give him a funeral, but they had guards all around them. So there was many people weren't allowed to even go into the funeral, only some select few people. So it's very mysterious, very dark, and clearly they wanted to hide all this. It's awful, and it's sent shockwaves through the Christian community in that area.
So it sounds like he was basically martyred or attacked by an angry mob who was clearly opposed to the fact that he was preaching the gospel. And then it looks like the authorities were kind of covering that all up. Maybe they could even have had some parts to play, because we don't know what has happened between during the road to the hospital from whence he was beaten up. So there's a lot of suspicion there that the authorities are, in the very least, covering it all up, or even complicit with his martyrdom. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep, that's right. I mean, it would have been probably most likely a few locals who were being bribed to find him. They found him, probably called the local authorities, said, we've got him, and then they dealt with him. That would be the most likely scenario. And then they would have asked, once they beat him up, they would have asked the mob, can you guys take him to the hospital now? And then obviously that's when he died. So he leaves now a wife, a family, but he leaves a legacy of courage. There are many people there who've been saved. And I met a lot of these people, and they are, even though they live in a lot of fear, they will not turn away from Jesus Christ. Their faith is strong and unwavering.
So this is what I actually wanted to ask. So from your impression talking to them, has that episode shaken anyone's faith? Are anybody questioning, maybe we should, stop, believing in our hope in Jesus is too dangerous, or maybe we should just be more quiet in how we are spreading the gospel? What was some of the responses, the reactions in the community that you were able to observe?
Yeah, it is such a blessing, and I think it's something that we as Westerners, it's hard to fathom, but it gives us incredible joy, and the fact that they would just continue on. It's hard to describe the passion they have for Christ. They're not theologians. These guys are not, highly intelligent as far as book learning, I guess you'd say. However, they are committed to Christ. They know the Word of God. This just encourages them to fight even harder. It means they need to be more careful sometimes, because they figure while they're on the earth, they'll be able to do more good. So, they have to be a bit more careful. So there's lessons learned there. However, that will not stop them from sharing the Word of God. So it is a blessing to us. And that's why I always ask people, if I can get our subscribers and our supporters connected with these people, and that's something that we're always trying to do, it will bless you beyond. We have our own little persecutions in our own life. We get ignored, we get treated like, you're a bit weird, a bit different. I mean, these are nothing compared to what they're going through. But when you connect with these people, this sort of stuff washes off us. It makes it so much easier to have courage and strength, and that's the power of these blessed brothers and sisters. That's
amazing. And tell us a little bit about the support that Voice of the Martyrs is able to offer them, to ministry for them. Of course, there is the awareness, there are the prayers, there is just the encouragement in general. And tell us about some of the other ways that Voice of the Martyrs, through the donations that it receives, it's able to empower and to support the persecuted church in Vietnam.
Yeah, well, some of the things that we do, we get a lot of support to buy them motorbikes. This is really, really important. Now, we have to be careful. We buy them very discreet motorbikes. These motorbikes wear out every year because, man, they're on the road all the time, and they have to ride at night. They have to ride during monsoon. So they wear out very quickly, but it is essential for them to do their work because the roads out there are pretty bad. So we do that, and pastoral support. We help some of those pastors just to get through their week. The donations they get from their church is very small and very hard to live on. So we help with that. And also families. So when someone is martyred, we assist their families to move forward because often the husband was the breadwinner in the family. So we teach the wives. We help them create small businesses, chickens and sewing and other things that they can help with the community. And that way they can be self-sustaining going forward. And these women are amazing. They'll have a home group. They'll have an underground church group the week after their husbands were slain. It's, it must be awful for them, but they're willing to do it. And it just makes you humble, very humble.
Absolutely. And what a great support. And I mean, these brothers over there, they'll be so grateful for, their fellow believers here in the other side of the world, in Australia, for allowing them to say, look, you know what, you're not invisible. We're seeing you. We're praying for you. And we, in what we can, we may not be able to lift up your cross for you, but we can certainly help to lessen the burden that comes with it. So
Absolutely.
So Noah, before we go, we have about a minute left here. So what can we do? What do you encourage people to do to learn more about these stories, to get empowered and to support, to be a part of this ministry?
Sure. Now, your prayers matter. Trust me, they know that you're praying for them. They can feel it. They know that they've been in situations and God has brought them out. And they've said to me clearly, the prayers of your people in Australia matter to us, and they are praying for us. So we need to join them in prayer. It does matter. It doesn't fall on deaf ears. So the easiest way to do that is I can't do this every day or every week with you guys. However, if you subscribe to our magazine, which is free, physical magazine, it ends up on your coffee table, on your table, and that's a reminder, hey, I've got to pray for these guys. And that's the easiest thing to do. So you go to vom.com.au, click subscribe. It's free, and a physical magazine. I always encourage that. I find that is a great tool. So the stories are right in front of us, and then we go, I've got to pray for those guys.
Noah Rowett, thank you so much for sharing with us the story of Brother Fat, because it's a reminder of the cost of following the cross of Jesus because of the hope that is ahead of us.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.